Hi everybody, today I'm talking about insulin resistance. So insulin resistance can cause a major problem when you're trying to lose weight. When hormones go wacky, it could cause nothing but trouble, quite frankly. But what is insulin resistance? So insulin is our big hormone that deals with our glucose. So when glucose gets too high or starts climbing, insulin is released. And it has a couple of options of things to do with that glucose. It could get it into the cells, so the insulin's like the key that opens up the cells to let the glucose get into the cells so it can produce energy, or it could store that glucose as fat. And that really depends on the load of glucose that actually enters the body. So say on a day-to-day basis, when our blood sugar is going up and down all day, every day, depending on what we eat, how much we eat, the type of foods that we eat. So really it should goes like this, you've just eaten breakfast, blood sugar goes up and then it dips down as the glucose clears from the blood, and then it kind of goes up again as you eat lunch or you snack, and then it goes down again. So it's going up and down all day. So what we really want from glucose is a nice, easy little set of hills going along, okay? And what that means then is that insulin's coming in at a nice, reasonable amount. So say there's three things that we want in every single meal to help keep that blood glucose at a nice reasonable level. We want protein, we want fats, and we want fibre. Those are the three elements that keep blood glucose nice and happy because they slow down the absorption of glucose from the gut into the bloodstream. So say for breakfast in the morning you have scrambled eggs, smoked salmon, avocado, tomato, mushrooms, loaded with protein, fats and fibre. Blood sugar goes up at a nice reasonable amount. Insulin comes in from the pancreas at a nice reasonable amount. The insulin opens up the cells, the glucose goes into the cells, and then as the glucose clears from the blood, you get a bit peckish again, and by lunchtime you're quite hungry and off you go and eat again. So that's how it should work, okay? So say, for instance, for breakfast in the morning, you have 2 slices of white toast with jam, or you have cornflakes, or some very commercial, high carbohydrate cereal. What happens is your blood sugar spikes. There's no real much protein, fats and fibre slowing that spike down at all. It just goes straight into the bloodstream, converts straight to glucose, and your glucose spikes. So the body sees that as an emergency and releases lots of insulin, actually more than you actually need, because it wants to get rid of that glucose from the blood as quickly as possible. So what happens is the insulin opens up the cells, the glucose goes into the cells, but the cells get saturated quite fast. They just get overwhelmed with the amount of insulin and glucose that's floating around. So pretty much what happens is the rest of that glucose just gets stored in the fat stores as triglycerides. Because insulin has done such a fabulous job, the next thing you're crashing through the floor because it's actually cleared too much glucose out of the blood, and your body tries to maintain glucose at a certain level at all times. So it goes, right, we need to get some more sugar in here, signals the brain for some sugar, you're feeling a bit tired, a bit cranky, a bit anxious, you go off and eat some cookies or some lollies or whatever, you feel a lot better, blood sugar spikes again, and you're back off on that roller coaster again. So if you start your day with a really high refined carbohydrate cereal, you're on that blood sugar roller coaster the entire day. So what happens then on an ongoing basis? On an ongoing basis, on a cellular level, okay, so the outside of the cell is made up from fats and cholesterol. And the type of fats that we eat in the diet is very important to keep our cell happy. So if we eat lots and lots of trans fats, lots of cakes, cookies, whatever that have been bought from supermarkets, they've used things like margarines, then the cell could become quite dysfunctional. Same with lots and lots of saturated fats. I mean, saturated fats in a reasonable amount aren't too bad for us, but if we eat too much of them, again, on a cellular level, the cell doesn't work that well. On the other hand, if we eat lots of polyunsaturated fats, lots of monounsaturated fats, or olive oil and avocado, oily fish, nuts and seeds, the cell actually functions quite well because it's getting all those great fats and keeping the inflammation down in the body. So round about the cell, we've got lots and lots of little gates that go around about the cell, and they're the ones that let glucose in and out of the cell. And inside the cell, we've got all our DNA and little organelles, but we've got a little factory called the mitochondria, and that's the one that produces the energy in the cell, and it needs glucose to produce energy. Everything gets broken down into glucose. Protein, fats, carbohydrates, everything gets broken down into glucose. So you've got the little cell with the little gates and the little factory inside, and then all the glucose comes in round about the cell. But the glucose can't actually get into the cell without insulin. Insulin is the key that opens up the cell. So the insulin comes in from the pancreas, opens up the little gates in the cell, the glucose goes into the cell, and the factory produces energy. A very simplified form, a very complex process, but that's pretty much what happens. So over a period of time, when you've been overloading your body with too much insulin, too much glucose, what happens is the cells become a bit numb. So the gates don't work efficiently. So they actually, change their function a little bit and they become desensitized to insulin. They become insulin resistant. So that's just that overload with too much glucose, too much carbohydrates going in all the time. So when the insulin comes along, so the big piles of glucose, when the insulin comes along, it tries to attach to the little locks, but the locks have changed. They no longer want to respond to insulin. So the body says, right, okay, we need to get rid of all this glucose in the blood, so it stores it all as fat. In the meantime, this little factory inside the cell is saying, where is my glucose? I need to produce energy, and signals the brain for sugar. So you pretty much become a fat storing and sugar craving machine. And that is pretty much insulin resistance. So when you are consistently hungry, you're eating your meals and you're hungry for half an hour later, or 2 hours later you're crashing, you're feeling sleepy, that 3 o'clock in the afternoon dip is a sure sign that there's blood sugar imbalance. These are all signals that things aren't going very well. Now, you might think, well, I've just had my blood glucose checked, I've just had my insulin checked, and everything's fine. If you have a spare tire, or you're overweight at all, you're already insulin resistant. It's not a matter of I'm waiting in 10 years for blood glucose issues, it's already here. So do something about it now. So how do we do something about this? We start taking away the glucose. So we reduce the carbohydrates in the diet. We could take them all out completely, or you just make better choices when it comes to carbohydrates. Make sure you've got lots of protein in every meal, great fats and fibre, and that could mean vegetables. You can keep some whole grains in, but they usually have to reduce. But big plates of white carbohydrates, big plate of pasta, big plates of rice, big plates of cereal, they are going to drive insulin resistance and drive weight gain. So I hope you took away from that what you need to do to help your diet, help you give you a bit of an understanding of what's going on in the body, and that was insulin resistance and weight gain. Okay, bye.